Hi Bob, thanks for having me.
Yes, welcome.
I looked your company up, Insect Engineers, because I'm interested in the potential of the black soldier fly to help with climate healing, turning organic waste into valuables, and while doing so, sequestering emissions. Could you tell me something about the cost-benefit analysis to implement black soldier fly farming in the context of an existing dairy operation, or for instance, let's start with the dairy operation.
Yeah. But again, perhaps no matter what operation the end will be, you already use an important word, farming. Perhaps if you go a bit back in the history of insect farming, we're unique in what we do because we have a different approach. We have what we call our Zoom system, and the industries has learned to grow in small crates, 60 by 40 centimeter or 60 by 80. And I think we realized, if you look at cost benefit and so on, that it's more logistic warehouse solution than more farming. While the end black soldier fly is, you have a last possibility of using different kind of waste streams to feed to your larvae. But it heats, you have heat generation, you have moist, you have CO2, all conditions which I would say in general not good for electronics.
Horrible.
So we want to avoid that in a production room. And that sounds logic, but for the industry it wasn't logic yet. So we came with a different approach where our, let's say, crate is like 1.5 by 30 meter long in a commercial farm, 7 levels high, so we still have vertical farming. And again, cost benefits is because it's more idiot proof. We always say at some point when you start filling, that is the first step, you start filling a room. We always say you need 3 people, 1 with brains and 2 with hands. So it emphasizes that you not only need high-skilled labor, let's say, to run your farm, which is important in your cost, and I think you have certain flexibility in growing in a way of, if you want to be cost price effective, a farmer needs to be able to farm. So you need to be able to control what's going on. So it's all climate controlled. We have 24/7 substrate temperature measurement, which is important because the larvae in the end grow in a substrate. So that's their living condition. So that's what you want to make sure.
If the conditions are ideal, the conversion is ideal.
Yes, in the end it's, sometimes some people do, in Europe of course it's always a topic like animal welfare. I think outside Europe it's less of a topic, but at the same time it's a good topic because when you create the best environment for your animals, in this case the black soldier fly, you probably also create the best conversions from your feed into
so that,
protein.
Essentially, without environmental controls and conditioning, you're at the mercy of nature. If
Yes.
it's a hot day, if it's a cold day, it's a cold day. So the throughput would not be stable without environmental conditioning.
You need climate control environment to have consistency. In the end, that's important for your waste, your waste stock, what you feed, because you can imagine it's a nightmare when you have a truckload of waste and have to stand that for a day longer outside. So you will not get very happy about that. And at the same time, also looking at the end market, so the end products like protein, you also need a consistency there. So in the end, a proper controlled environment is important both at the start as at the end of your cycle.
Right. You mentioned protein. Let's follow up on that. What are the outputs? What goods do you produce when you utilize black soldier fly larvae?
Yeah, in the end, you have I think 2 main end products. It's the protein, which comes from the larva, and it's organic fertilizer, which is for your soil. For the rest, it's complete circular, so I have no other leftover products than those 2. And the protein, and again, can still be in different shapes and conditions, because you can have living larvae, you can have dry larvae, I can have meal, you can have oil, you can have paste. What you choose, and how far you process it will also depend on your customer and who's your target group. And at the same time with the fertilizer, it's great for agricultural land and for plants and for vegetables. So,
right. What about the oil?
That's a good question. It's I have to be honest that my expertise on the oil is always a bit less. But what I learned from it is that you can have more. The industry in the end likes the higher a certain value, the better. The same is with when we look. Okay, I'll make the comparison with meal, and if it's dried, for example, then it's 30% protein. But if it's further processed, it's for example 55% protein. So also with oil, you have a higher grade, I think, of concentrate.
All right. So essentially, when you farm the black soldier fly, you harvest them, you process them. You can utilize the protein as a protein feed for livestock.
Yes.
Cows, chickens, aquaculture, pigs, anything really.
Yeah, correct.
So in the context of an existing operation, that means you can quintessentially cut the cost for protein feed.
Yes. And on that side, so cut the cost of protein feed, but at the same time, it can also be other, depending on which organization you use it, a benefit in the waste reduction, because you're probably most likely upcycling a certain waste stream of that specific farm. So there can be a two-way benefit. One end.
Speaking of waste stream, what can you feed to the black soldier fly larvae?
I want to say everything, but that's of course not true. Okay, let's already categorize it as being organic matter, organic waste.
Right.
That can be fruit, vegetable waste, bread, but it can also be things like, for example, manure or sludge.
Sludge too?
Yes, sludge
but
too.
It needs to be dewatered, right?
But yeah, until a certain size. Depends where you blend it in with. If I have a certain dry feed and I mix it in, that if you have, for example, but again, also perhaps that still important comment there is, let's say the possibilities are endless, but regulations will limit. In Europe, for example, you are not allowed to feed manure, for example. It's simply a regulation. But outside Europe, it's often allowed, which also gives great opportunities. But on one hand, you have all the waste streams you're allowed to use. On the other hand, you have to look at regulation, if there's any, what they are.
Well, speaking of Vietnam, there is not many. So
positive. Often, again, it often creates opportunities, because you can also, one hand, even if regulations come in the future, you can explain to the regulator in advance of it. You can always showcase the benefits. So then there's also much more opportunity that regulations will benefit the industry, because the industry has already proven
this works.
Yes.
Great. Now, in the context of dairy farms, cows produce, I think, 40 to 60 liters of manure a day.
Yeah.
So in terms of dairy farm, it's huge volumes, right?
Yeah.
What about scalability?
Yeah, in the end, at some point when you have a certain size, it becomes modular. At least in our approach, perhaps that's an important phrase.
Right now, I'm talking about
Yeah, no, that's true. It is a modular-based system. So in the end, once you're certain, suppose you need, I'm making this up, 30 production rooms.
All right.
But number 30 is identical with number 1. So as soon as you build number 1, everything you expand is copy-paste what you already have. And the advantage with machinery, you don't need to expand, because the machine has to supply to 1 room or to 30 rooms. It's the same machine.
Yeah,
because it's simply the difference is initially you use it 2 hours a day, and later on you use it 8 hours per day.
Right. That's great. So it doesn't matter if you have 5 tons a day or 50 tons a day.
That's why it's
copy
modular.
paste. You just scale up linearly.
Yes.
Right. Perfect.
Well, linearly in size, but not in cost, because it's not that if 10 rooms cost €100, that 20 rooms cost €200. No, then it's not. The cost don't go linear. Again, because you don't need to reinvest in machinery because you already have them, those costs don't increase. So it even becomes cheaper and expanding.
Cheaper and expanding. Yeah, that's good news.
Yeah.
All right. What are the advantages beyond protein feed? Sorry, we cycle back to that.
Yeah.
Beyond protein feed and cost cutting of that, and using it as a fertilizer. I mean, if you have a dairy production, you might or you might not have land or pastures. You can manage its fertility through applying the black soldier fly frass.
Yeah.
Can you monetize it if you don't have pastures, if you just have cows and no pastures?
You mean if you can the end product you make if you can use it somewhere else in the market. Or
Yeah, can you place it into the market? Can you sell it? Can you?
yeah, no, of course. It's in the end, of course, there's always a key benefit when you can use it in your own facility because that directly is you can always directly see it as a cost saving.
Right.
But sometimes the business case is better to actually sell it because it simply brings more. So again, when you look at, for example, the fertilizer, it's sometimes farming often is high volume, so you can always say, okay, I sell truckloads of 20 tons of frass, but we've also seen examples where you can say, okay, no, I sell it in packages of 20 kilogram, because then it goes to the consumer, but the consumer market is of course high-end market, so certainly the profit on a 20 kilogram bag is much higher than when I sell a truckload of frass.
It's funny that you say that because I looked specifically for insect frass on Amazon, and I couldn't find any.
No, but that's again we have a good relation also with a supermarket in the UK, and always that idea was when they have supermarket waste, then and it goes to the insect farm, then in the end the idea was always okay. The protein they would use it then for the pet food industry, and the waste of the frass would be a fertilizer. But then the marketing story is of course, dear consumer, we as a supermarket take care of the environment. We take your waste, and on one hand we make it a feed for your beloved animal, on one hand we make it a fertilizer for your beloved garden. But of course in that case it both goes back to the consumer, one hand to pet food, one hand to as a fertilizer. Yeah, that has of course
so essentially what you're telling me, it's circular.
It's circular, and again the circular model of perhaps the supermarket is perhaps different than a dairy farm. They can be the same, but in the way of it's always circular, it's always closed, and the cost choices you make and the benefits you have, it depends also on your background, of course.
Right. So this is essentially what I try to educate people about, that to grow food you do not need to use mineral fertilizer.
Yeah.
Right. Because they need to dig it up.
Yeah.
With heavy machinery, they blow out a lot of gasoline doing that.
Yep.
Pollute the environment doing it. Then they ship, then they refine it. It's even worse. And then they ship it, even worse. And they apply it into the soil, and everything becomes sterile, even worse.
Yeah.
With black soldier fly frass, you can produce locally almost fertility without emitting, except the transport from the facility to the consumer or a bulk client. You do not emit any emissions.
Correct. It can even be on site. In a way, of course, that depends on the application, of course, but the advantage is that it can be local, can be on site, and again, you got a lot of logistic steps.
Fantastic. That's awesome. Yeah. Wow. It's exactly what I want.
Yeah.
I want to, before this interview, we already talked, right?
Yeah.
I like to reiterate for the audience.
Yeah.
It is my goal to turn polluting companies into companies that ideally become carbon negative, not net zero. It's not good enough. And if we utilize black soldier fly as a key component for that process, I hope that we can make a pilot, demonstrate it, and make this the default. A sustainable economy should be the default and not the exception.
That's true. But I think what you're saying is also right in the way of also piloting. I already learned the hard way that you need to have a proof of concept or let's say physical where people can go to see it, feel it, smell it, just to understand, okay, what does it mean and what's the benefit and visualize it. And again, when you will be able to put a pilot, then it's often it will speed up developments because then it's less convincing. Of course, you can talk well, I can talk well, that's not the problem. But in the end, taking somebody by the hand and showcasing them, for example, a pilot farm, that was magic. That in the end...
hands-on experience is a great thing to make people not, first of all, perceive, tickle their curiosity, get their attention, and then get them excited and believe in it and see it. Seeing is not believing, touching is believing. I believe.
That's Yeah, that's true. But it's indeed again, we had now several experiences in the past, also with pilot facilities we delivered, and in advance already showcased you some examples. But again, it showcases when you have also in that the pilot should be a proper setup. Always, you should not. People who set up a pilot should think about okay, what do we need to achieve, what do we need to showcase, what do we need to prove, and based on that, do the investment. Because then, also in that case, I do believe, do it right or don't do it. In the way of don't do it, then wait for it a bit longer till all the connections are made. Because again, it has been proven a proper pilot. Yeah.
Speaking of which, seeing is believing. I mean, touching is believing, but obviously that is not possible for the audience. That is excellent and like to see. May I?
Yeah, of course. Well, I'll already have an open invitation for you to visit the Insect School, so we can have a walk around there, and I'll show you in real life what we're doing there, and explain, how it happens in reality, and the phases we have been going through, and what are the current stages. So
fantastic! I love that.
Yeah.
Then we terminate the interview at this point, and let's get the hands dirty, I guess.
Good.
Thank you, Bob.
Yes. Good.